Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Outer Rim Cantina. My name's Alan and today I wanted to talk about Star Wars video games and what I think the future is for them. As many people already know, EA dropped support for Battlefront 2 last month. The move came as a bit of a shock to everyone, considering the recent addition of Scarif and original trilogy supremacy to the game, along with a steadily growing player base. Despite this, EA cut support for the game and moved the development team over to work on the next Battlefield game. Normally this wouldn't be too surprising, but over the past several months, Battlefront 2 has taken over Battlefield 5 in the number of new and returning players, along with having a seemingly larger and more dedicated fanbase. The ending of support also meant that the new content for Battlefront 2 that the devs were working on never saw the light of day, such as a new loadout system that was apparently almost ready for launch before support ended. Despite this, the game went free on PS Plus this month, and recently got added to Steam with a number of other EA titles, which caused a surge in players. Unfortunately, the chances of EA coming back to Battlefront 2, or even acknowledging it anymore, are pretty much zero. However, not all hope is lost with the recent reveal of Squadrons, a 5v5 multiplayer flight simulator that takes place shortly after the events of Return of the Jedi, but before The Mandalorian. This game looks promising and fairly interesting as it's made by the same studio, Motive, that designed Starfighter Assault for Battlefront 2. The gameplay we've seen looks fun and engaging, and the inclusion of a single-player campaign is a nice touch to expand the Star Wars lore in something other than a movie, book, or comic. Unfortunately, however, for people like me who don't have an interest in flight simulators, we're kind of stuck with nothing. There's no word of a Battlefront 3 or any other multiplayer ground combat game coming anytime in the future. The only thing we have to look forward to after Squadrons is the sequel to Fallen Order, which is supposedly in the early stages of development. Still, for the foreseeable future, we're stuck with a dead game that won't receive any more support or updates, and our only alternative is to spend $40 on a standalone version of a game that is already included with Battlefront 2. Now, before you go jumping down my throat, I do realize that Squadrons is a lot more than just a standalone Starfighter Assault. But from what I've seen so far, there just isn't enough there to make me want to buy the game. The end of the EA exclusivity license is coming at an end in the next few years, and that means the future of Star Wars games is reaching uncertain territory. The task will fall on Disney whether to sign another contract with EA or open up the Star Wars IP for other developers to create their own games. We've all seen the roller coaster of highs, lows, and disappointments EA has brought with their exclusive use of the Star Wars IP, and I think it is well past time to get other studios involved in Star Wars. In the time EA has had their contract, we've gotten less than half the number of Star Wars games than we did in the same time frame when LucasArts was around. Granted, not all of those LucasArts games were good, but most of them were a lot better than what EA has shown us they can do over the past several years. Earlier this week, Andrew Wilson, the EA CEO, made a statement that the company would be doubling down on Star Wars games in the near future. I assume that's just his pitch to try and keep the exclusivity of Star Wars, and that can be both good and bad. It can be good in the sense of maybe getting more than 4 games in 8 years, but also bad in the sense of having to deal with EA and their less than stellar track record when it comes to quality games and consumer-friendly practices. I think it's well past time that Disney take a different approach to Star Wars video games. The past several years have shown that there is a large market for them still, with over 35 million copies of both EA Battlefront titles having been sold since 2015. Personally, I would love to see Disney open up the IP and instead of just signing a big game company like EA to have exclusive control over everything, let other studios pitch their ideas for Star Wars games or give demonstrations of what they can do and go from there. Not only would that help speed up the release of Star Wars games, but it would also expand upon the lore and add more to canon if more creatives are allowed to write and create stories in a space with a huge market like video games. I would love to see what different studios are able to do with different styles of games. Not every Star Wars game needs to be a flight sim or a shooter. An open world or open galaxy game that gives plenty of room for the player to roam and explore while having a central story, kind of like Skyrim, would be a great addition to both canon and the player's game library. Something along the lines of the Coder series, or even SWTOR, that's set in a different time period with new characters, stories, and adventures that allows the player to make different choices and decisions that directly affect how the story plays out across the galaxy would be absolutely fantastic. Sadly though, I doubt we'll see anything like that anytime soon. The reality of the situation is that Disney will most likely re-up EA's contract, and we'll have another 8 years of wondering whether we will ever get a truly great Star Wars game again. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about it for now. As always, I would love to know what you think of the future of Star Wars games down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like, as those really do help a small channel like this, and consider subscribing if you want to see more Outer Rim Cantina content in your feeds every week. That's all the time I've got for today. I hope to see you back here on Saturday for another Star Wars video. Until then, may the Force be with you.